Okay, guys, today, inshallah, we're going to pass to section 2 of chapter 18. In section 1, we already know that everything in the ecosystem or in the environment is highly connected. Different living organisms, they are in interaction to each other, and they are in interaction with their environment just to satisfy their needs or to obtain their needs to survive and so on. And then we know that the ecology is the study of this kind of interaction, and to be able to study this huge or massive kind of interaction, we must divide it into levels. So we find that we start by the smallest one, which is the organism. This organism is gonna live with similar, okay, individuals of his kind or his species, so they form a population. This population must be in contact with other animals, that mean other populations in the same area, so they make a community. The community or this different population, they can not only interact together without their environment to get some material from the environment like water, air, blah blah blah. So they are gonna be with connection with a living with non-living things, so we call them abiotic factors, which create an ecosystem. Then different ecosystems together, they are gonna produce the entire planet where the life is exist, which we call it the biosphere. I think it was easy. Okay. Anyone have any question regarding to the last section before we start the new one, or anything is not clear, guys? Guys, do you have any question?
No, mister.
Okay.
No,
So
mister.
let's try to. I need someone to read this slide, please. Okay. Yes, Jenna.
Yes, mister.
Yeah.
Um, Indian pipe, Bellringer. Indian pipe is a plant that is completely white. It has no chlorophyll or chloroplasts. It give it to give it a green color. Do you think this plant could be producer? If not, where do you think it could get the energy it needs to survive?
Okay, guys, that's a very, very good question. Okay, think and tell me if you just know the answer or have a kind, share your ideas. Just raise your hand. Okay, so others, please, everyone, try to share, save your participation marks. Hurry up. So, what do you think? Yes, Farah? Farah Hashim? What do you think? This kind of plant could be a producer or not?
مستر وانا I was using my hand to read بس
So,
الquestion
try
I
to
will
think.
think يعني
What do you think?
no I'm saying I will think يعني about the question.
Just think about it. He said that this kind of plant, the Indian pipe plant, doesn't have chloroplast and no chlorophyll at all in it. So this plant could be a producer. That means it can make the photosynthesis process.
No.
No. So like that, we say it's no. It cannot be a producer because it doesn't have the chlorophyll as usual in most plants. So in that kind, it will not be able to make photosynthesis. So what do you think? Okay, how this plant, if it's not a photo, if it's not a synthetic or if it's not a producer, how do you think it's gonna get their energy? What do you think? What guys? This plant cannot absorb the
Um,
sunlight energy. It can get so. Others, could you share us, please? Farah, if you have an idea, you can say it. Yes, Farah Mahlab?
Yes, maybe it's gonna eat the plants that eat insects.
Yeah, good. Okay, it will. It may be an insect eater. Okay, or it may feed on another living organism, or it may have a kind of relation with other living organisms to obtain its needs from. Yes or no? So mainly the idea of Farah that this plant cannot make its own food, okay, by itself as a producer because it's not a producer, it doesn't have chlorophyll. So in that case, it must be in contact or must depend on other living organisms. Yes or no? That's your idea, Farah?
Yes.
Yep. So here, that's given an idea here that all living organisms somehow, okay, even some kind of plants, they depend on other, okay, living organisms to obtain their needs. And these living organisms, they are gonna depend on their environment. So here, that's which we're gonna talk about here, about in that section, that living things, all living things, whatever the kind of that living organism, they need energy. Actually, they need energy and matter both. Okay, energy for doing different biological functions, while matter, why do we need matter, guys? What do you think? Why living earth also need matter? Okay, others, people, hey, wake up, you're still sleepy. We said that all living organisms needs energy and Okay, matter. So they require energy for doing different functions or different biological, okay, functions and activities. Why do we need matter? Okay, what do you think? Uta.
Semester.
Yeah, what do you think? Why do we need matter? Why we should obtain matter?
Can you please repeat the question?
The question, we said that all living organisms, they need energy and matter. Okay,
Yes.
so they need energy to doing the different biological activities. Why we need matter, guys? What do you think?
Matter?
Yeah, matter.
No, I don't know.
So matter, it doesn't not you must not get matter as a kind of physical issue or physical substance, or that's a matter that we could be in a thing. So what we need matter? What do you think? What that mean in another way? What do we need different elements and compounds and so on? Yes, Pomika? Pomika? You,
Sister,
yes, you raised your hand. So share us.
I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah, just share us. Okay. Why do you think living organisms they need matter, guys?
In order to survive,
Yeah, survive. What we're gonna use this matter for?
in order to help us live and
Yeah, using for what?
shelter.
Yes, using for make shelter. Okay, and actually the main thing to build our bodies. Our bodies is already made of different materials, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and so on. So we need to get this matter to build our bodies. Yes or no? So here we said that living organisms they require matter, okay, and energy, matter just to build their bodies, their souls, okay, and so on, and making home shelters and something like that. And at the same time, we need energy to do different biological activities. So we're gonna ask you, from where do we obtain both energy and matter? We obtain them from
Food.
food. Good. We obtain them from food. So you get food. Okay. Once you eat food, the food provides your body with the raw material or the matter that needed to build your body, and then same time it provides your body with the required energy to do the different biological activities. So like this, we could find that all living organisms they need somehow to find food or to get food. So to get their food, okay, we have different types of living organisms and how they obtain their food. That's which we're gonna learn in that lesson. So here, let's find, guys. We said that by the end of this lesson, we should be able to describe the function of producers, consumers, decomposers in an ecosystem, then distinguish between the food chain and food web, what the difference between them, and explain how energy flows through the food web, and finally describe how the removal of species affect the entire food web. Okay, so here, guys, let's find this. We have some terms, or we classify the living organisms, depends on the way they obtain their food, into three types: producer, consumer, and decomposer. Okay, so anyone have an idea what difference between them? What difference? What is producer, or what's consumer and decomposer, and so on? So
Yes.
who can tell me what is producer? Yes, Hannah Hani.
A producer, a living thing that make um, that spread or produce food or energy to
Yeah,
others.
okay. Yeah, so to others or to himself?
To himself.
To himself. That the idea. Actually, plants and some photosynthetic living organisms or producers, they don't care about others. Just make already. It's a natural process they done to survive. That's here the it's a good thing, okay, for others. They feed on plants, but actually the plant doesn't care if it's gonna make food for dippers or insects or something like that. So like this producer said that the organisms that use sunlight, or they can make their own food, okay. So how they can make their own food? Through the famous process which we know is photosynthesis, in which the plant absorbs the sunlight directly and convert this sunlight into chemical energy stored in the food products like glucose, starch, and so on. So the plants already or producers, they are living organisms which can make their own food through photosynthesis process. Actually, there are even some other kinds of living organisms. They can make their own food without photosynthesis process. They could make some chemical reaction. Doesn't depend on sunlight. We call it chemosynthesis. That means also they are producers, like some kinds of bacteria. They can make their own food, but they depend on certain chemical substances to make this reaction instead of depending on sunlight. But the majority of the producers are photosynthetic, which means they depend on sunlight to make their own food. So like this, we know what is producer. Is it clear for everyone, guys? Is it clear, guys?
Yes, Mister.
Yep. Okay. So then we pass to the second type. What is consumer? What is the consumer, guys? What do you think? Yes, Mihad?
Living things that eat or survive on eating other animals or plants.
Good. Okay. So consumers, the living organism, they cannot make their own food, so they must depend on others. Okay. So they may eat another animal or may eat a plant. Okay. So like this, we consumer organisms that eat other organisms. Okay, whatever they are, animals or plants. Okay. So we call them consumers. Okay. So what about decomposers, guys? Yes, Hana Yasser?
They are organisms that decompose or break down the decaying or dead bodies.
Yes, good. Okay, so decomposers, they are organs that they get energy by breaking down dead bodies or food remains. That means they already break down or they feed on dead bodies. Okay, so there are three major categories of living organisms, guys, here, depending on the way and how they feed. They could be producers, consumers, or decomposers. Producers, they are living organisms, they can make their own food. Consumers, they are gonna eat other animals or plants to obtain food and energy. Decomposers, they already feed on dead bodies. Any hard question regarding to these three, guys?
No,
No.
No.
So here, let's find something important. Let's see here. Actually, consumers, they could be classified into these consumers. Actually, they could be different things, or we could divide them into different types based on what they are eating. They could be divided into four types. Okay, so what we'll call these four types, okay, of living organisms, or actually, let's find here.
Mr.
Okay, yep.
Three only.
Actually, we're gonna add one. Okay, we need to maximize your knowledge. Okay, so let's
Okay.
find here what these three types. First thing here, we're gonna find the first kind. Who can tell me if you have an idea also?
I know.
Yes, tell me.
Herbivore وomnivore وcarnivore.
So that's, you said the three. Okay, so herbivore. Okay, so who can tell me what mean by herbivore? Okay,
Animals that eat plants only.
so they eat plants only. Okay, or they depend on plants directly to get their food. Okay, just like whatever, like grasshopper eating grass. Okay, zippers eating plants, and so on. Rabbits, chickens, blah blah. Once we say they eat plant, it not must to eat the green part of the plant. They could eating the seeds, whatever, anything that's related to plants. Okay, you get the idea. Even like honeybees, for example, they feed on the nectar of flowers. Okay, not must to eat the green part of the plant, whatever, any part of the plant. So here then pass to the second, and the other kind we said that it's carnivore. So who can tell me what mean by carnivore? Yes, carnivore, guys. What about the others? The are very, or the easy questions. Okay, let's share,
I
guys.
know.
Adham, what's carnivore?
Carnivore
Yep.
are the consumers that eat meat only.
Yes, so carnivore, they just feed on meat. They are actually the carnivore. They are the predators. They animals.
Like lions
Yeah, they like
and
lions,
the
tigers. Okay, so carnivores, they feed on meat only. They must hunt, okay, another animal, or they feed on another animal. Okay, so we call them carnivores. Then the third type, omnivore. Okay, so what is omnivore, guys?
I know.
So let's find a new one. Okay, to answer, yes, Laura.
It's when the living things eat plants and animals.
Yes, okay. Here we find that it's the living organism that is able to feed on both plants and animals. Okay, so it's omnivore. It could feed on plants directly or feed on animal. Okay, so anyone can give example for omnivore?
Human.
Human. Okay, we are omnivore. Okay, because we could eat plants and at the same time we could eat the meat. Okay, so let's here find the fourth type or what that's the fourth thing here. Okay, so here we said that is. So we know that, scavengers, guys. What are scavengers or not? Do you know what this?
Yes.
What is scavengers?
Omnivores that eat dead plants too.
Omnivore that
Eat dead plants.
eat plants? No.
Eat,
We said
I know.
Dead plants and animals. Dead.
did. Okay, yes, good.
This time.
Scavengers, actually, scavengers, they are living earth, they are feeding on dead plants. So could we consider them decomposers, guys? Could we consider them decomposers?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, why?
Why? That's a good question. Here, let's
Because the
find
plant is already dead.
what?
غلط مش صح؟
I can't hear you. What do you say?
مش هو البلانت
It's not a
already
plant.
dead.
Yep. I said the scavengers. Scavenger, they are living organisms which feed on dead living organisms.
Mister,
Yep.
is it because they don't break down the body and they eat it, and like the body
Yes.
doesn't like return to the soil, so no nutrients in the
Yep.
soil?
Good. Actually, scavengers, they make internal digestion. That means they already feed on the dead body. They chew it, swallow it, and pass it to their internal digestive system and they break it down, like hyena when they ate, like vultures when they eat the remains of the food after lions hunt. Okay, so like these scavengers, they make an internal digestion, break the dead bodies inside their body and get whatever they need. Okay, from it. While decomposers like bacteria and fungi and so on, they make external digestion. That means they already produce enzymes over dead bodies and break them down externally. They don't pass inside their bodies, okay? And then they absorb whatever they need. You get idea, guys? Is it clear?
Yes.
You know now the difference between decomposers and scavengers?
Mhm.
Yes, Mister.
Yeah. So like this, we consider scavengers
Mister,
as yep.
هو السكافنجر زي الفولتشر.
Vultures, yes, some of the vultures, not all of them, okay, some kinds of like some kind of eagles, actually they feed on that food remains and dead bodies. Okay, that like once lions they already finished their eating and some of the meat are left from a deer or a zebra or something like this. You find that some kinds of vultures like eagles, they start to eat this food remains or the dead body. Okay, like hyena. Okay, clear, Mahad?
Yes, Mister.
Of course, some other kind of vultures like hawks, okay, and even some other kinds of like the American eagle and something like this, they are hunters or they are already carnivores. They already hunt. Good idea. Actually, some living organisms sometimes they have two ways of feeding. Clear?
Yes, Mister.
Okay.
Yes.
So guys, now let's watch this video to show to us how these living organisms somehow they are connected. Okay. So here, let's find. Sorry, guys. So after watching that video, guys, you could observe that all living organisms somehow they are highly connected. And as was told in section 1, every living organism depend on the other to obtain energy and matter. Yes or no? That sequence of passing energy from one living organism to the next, we call it. Who can tell me, guys?
Food chains.
Food chain. Good. Okay. So we call this a food chain. So we're gonna find like this diagram or this picture illustrate different types of living organisms, okay, based on their way of feeding. So producers like plants, they could use the sunlight energy. As we know, sunlight is the main source of energy. So producers are gonna use this sunlight energy and convert it into chemical energy through the photosynthesis process to make their food. Then the consumer, this kind of herbivore, okay, is gonna feed on the plant directly, and in that case, the energy which is already stored in the plant will pass to the herbivore or this rodent, okay, and this also he's gonna obtain the required matter to build his own new cells. Then this wolf is this kind of predator or that's carnivore is gonna hunt, okay, this one, and then the energy and the matter will pass to the wolf and keep doing like this, okay. So they pass to the next. We find another consumer here like scavenger. This scavenger actually, okay, is gonna feed on the remains or of the wolf or that whatever the food remains that left from the wolf and so on. And finally, okay, whatever any one of these living organisms will die, so decomposers will start to break their body down to feed on the food or the dead bodies. So decomposers like bacteria, fungi, and so on. So here like this, we said that, or that idea, this energy is already passed, okay, within a food chain, okay. So the food chain and food web, they are kind of illustrating diagram that represent the passing of energy and matter, or especially energy, from one living organism to the next. Okay, as you watch in video, guys, we find that the food chain, it could be a land food chain. Okay, that means all living organisms are just living on land, like the grass eaten by grasshopper, then eaten by toad, and then snake, eagle, and ends by decomposer or so on. Or it could be aquatic, like as we said, okay, the sea grass is eaten by shrimp, then it's eaten by a small kind of fish, and then this small kind of fish is eaten by a large one, and so on. Sometimes the food chain could combine between the aquatic environment and land environment, because as you know, some land environment they could feed on some water or aquatic organisms. So like that food chain, we said that the seagrass eaten by shrimp and shrimps eaten by small kind of fish, and maybe eagle eat these fish. Okay, so like that, here sometimes the food chain could have connection between the two environments and so on. So like this, okay, as we could, or as we watch any food chain, we could find in a food chain, guys, sorry, okay, in the food chain, as we said, let's take an example here. In a food chain, as the example which we said, we find, let's draw it. We start by producer, okay, or plant. Then this producer will pass the energy to the first consumer, okay, so we call it primary consumer or consumer number one, okay, that usually is herbivore, okay. Then consumer one will pass it to consumer two, which usually is carnivore, okay, and so on. So the idea that any food chain must start by producer, while the entire food chain or all living organisms, they depend on that producer directly, like the first consumer or the herbivore, or indirectly, like the second carnivore or the second consumer, which is already eat an animal that eat the producer. So that means all living organisms, they depend on producers, okay, to obtain their food and energy, even they obtain it directly like herbivores or indirectly like carnivore. The idea is that arrow. What does that arrow represent, guys? What does this arrow represent? It means the producer feed on consumer. Yes.
No,
Who?
the
Energy that passes from
Yeah.
producer to consumer.
Yes. So this arrow represents the direction of energy flow. The energy passes from producers to consumer, then from consumer one to consumer two, and so on. So the arrows in the food chain just represent the flow of energy. Is it clear, guys?
Yes.
Any hard question till this part?
No.
Okay, so here, guys, that's the part which we're gonna stop at, and next time, inshallah, we're gonna distinguish between what difference between food chain and food web, and I hope that you will try to find the difference and tell me next time. And okay, so happy long weekend, okay, and I hope you enjoyed. And next time, inshallah, we're gonna continue and discuss together. Any other question, guys?
No.
No, thank you.
Thank
No,
you, guys.
Mr. Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.